Good Thursday morning, everyone. To all of you social media friends, first degree, all the way down to maybe even third degree connections of mine, as well as my guest today. You are here, in case you're wondering, if you just happen to drop into our live stream today, whether it be intentional or unintentional, you are here in today's episode of Selling That House. My guest today is a man of many hats, many skills. Some of you, maybe many of you, may already know him. For those of you that don't, well, you're going to be delighted. For our live stream conversation today, I've asked him to come into our conversation and share with all of you, I think, the one dilemma that may be hitting a lot of consumers, buyers, sellers that want to buy again. And that simply is there's not enough inventory. There is not enough, in your eyes, good homes for you to consider acquiring, buying, and closing on them. So with that as the backdrop today, let me welcome Jonathan Klemm into the room. So here we go. Hello, Jonathan.
All right, Bill. What's going on? Happy Thursday, my friend. Thank you for having me here on the live stream today. Super happy to be here.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for time blocking your time to join me today this way. I suspect that you were probably busy this morning, or you will be busy right after our live stream, meeting, greeting many of your clients and or skilled laborers as you're moving up and down ladders, right?
Hey, yeah, of course. I'm headed to a project directly after this down in Greater Grand Crossing area. So yeah, I'm on the move, but happy to block some time and hopefully add some value to everyone who's tuning in.
That is absolutely our goal together. Why don't we lead off with this, just to get you warmed up, Jonathan? For the people who may not know you, and my suspicion is that's a very small fraction of people.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
and for the ones, let's be real, for the ones that don't know you that well yet, why don't we warm you up, ask you to talk about what you do. I know you're a man of many hats, construction hat being one. So why don't you lead off that way, and then we'll just plunge in, dive into the heart of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, super high level. I thought all I had to do was go to college, get my W-2. I worked for a big corporate general contractor giant, ended up finding real estate kind of like a lot of other people once they're in their W-2, and then exited that W-2 to work for a tech company. And then kind of around that same time, got my real estate license, got my brokerage license, tried to do anything and everything in real estate possible, which I highly don't recommend because, you know, it's much easier to do one thing very well than many things at the same time. And, you know, I'm someone who had to learn that the hard way. But now my primary focus and sole focus is on working with real estate investors as a general contractor and doing that in and around the Chicago area.
Okay, wow. So let's make sure we understand the definition of real estate investor. By that, Jonathan, are you meaning one person or a small group of people who are acquiring real estate, maybe a diamond in the rough, the so-called ugly duckling on the block, and you're helping them add value to that property?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it on the head. Anyone who's buying a property, which could also be a primary residence, right? I don't think
Yes.
you know, that is an asset and something you could be looking at as more of an investment than a home. I think some people take that approach who are kind of following that house hacking model. But, you know, we primarily aim with working investors who are, you know, fix and flipping, burring, Burring would mean buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Always tricky to get that on the spot. But yeah, and then we primarily focus on small to medium sized multifamily, typically bigger renovations, but we've started doing smaller kitchens and baths and unit turns as well. And
Okay.
we'll take on a couple homeowner projects here and there if we kind of find proper alignment with those clients.
Okay, great. And back to how I started this live stream that you heard me describe to set the tone to bring you in. One of the biggest dilemmas right now, right, Jonathan? One of the biggest problems right now is there's a lack of inventory. There's a lack of good homes for consumers, investors, or they sometimes blend together. For them to even consider to pounce on it and say, Jonathan, help me turn this ugly duckling into the way I want to envision it. So with that, let's bring up a visual of some of the projects that you are proud to show off. And as you mentioned, Jonathan, as I see here from the entire portfolio of what you've done, I mean, I see the whole spectrum: single family homes, multi-units, and throughout Chicago neighborhoods, correct?
Yeah, we're pretty much covering most of the Chicagoland area, depending on the project. And kind of like you said, we have projects that are condos up to 19, 20 unit buildings,
Yeah,
and really kind of have a variety. At the root of it, renovating a property is the same whether you're doing it to a condo or a big building. It's just more dollar signs behind it.
true, true, true. Is it harder, putting you on the spot with this loaded question, Jonathan, is it harder to build a new construction home or renovate an existing home?
No, I think that's a question we actually get pretty frequently, and it's definitely, in my opinion, harder to renovate an existing home rather than doing new construction. And the reason for that answer for me is that there's actually less unknowns when you're building something new. You know,
Yeah,
you have a very clear blueprint, no pun intended, of exactly what you want to do, and you're not having to take down any walls or have any surprises, so to speak. Like, of course, there's things that often come up with scheduling and materials and whatnot, but from the grand scheme of things, there's just generally less surprises on new construction. But
yeah,
it also is quite a bit more difficult to get into because the people who are doing it on a very high volume base.
true, true. And as I like to use the cliche, Jonathan, real estate is a team sport. You got to make sure you've got the right members of your team on the field, right?
Yeah, I don't think, honestly, Bill, there's anything more important someone can focus on than building the right team that they know, like, and trust, just because, there's so many different people involved in the real estate space, with your attorneys, your agents, your contractors, your inspectors, that, you want people who are going to do the right thing every time. And to be honest, those type of people are actually harder to come by. And so
Yeah,
when you find them, you gotta want to lock them into your team for sure.
yeah, yeah. So as I look at this portfolio, as all of you audience members, whether you're watching this as a live stream or as an on-demand recording, as you look at this portfolio with me, I see that a lot of your projects, I mean, some of them, as I read the little bullet points, are clearly for investors because you share as a snapshot that their source of financing, if it's not cold hard cash, is either hard money, private money, or in the case of consumers buying this ugly duckling to renovate for their own primary residence, it's like a traditional mortgage loan, correct?
Yeah, and that is correct. Although we cover all those types of financing, and they're all different and have different varieties that come with them. And the other one that you didn't touch on that we get a lot of is the 203K loans. We get a lot of
Yeah,
3K loans. And then now most recently, I know that they have it's a home choice loan
Yeah.
where you can do 5% down now. So there's a lot of people who are looking at those multi-units and taking advantage of that as being owner occupants and finding that, lower down payment of 5% or 3.5% with the 2 or 3K.
Yeah.
And you can obviously still do a single family residence as well. And then you kind of touched on it with the low inventory. In my opinion, there's not a better way to increase your net worth as a family or as an individual than, doing a renovation and adding some instant equity to your properties.
Absolutely. And you and I both know, when it comes to the game, the business, the investment of real estate, the three words that are the most important is location, location, location. And sometimes, as part of focusing on that, you have to consider and maybe pick up that ugly duckling and turn it into either a prince or a princess, depending on you as a client.
Yeah. Like you said, location is always going to be the probably biggest factor in the long-term appreciation and, how quick some of those things are going to sell. I think, like you said, there's low inventory, but things that are done right in good areas are still moving very quickly. And
Yeah.
I think, if you can pay the extra money for the location, it's almost always going to be better on the back end.
Yeah, it will clearly have more concrete rewards for you, consumer or investor, or the entity who is looking to fix and flip or fix and hold, the real estate collateral as part of your project. What are some of the most common mistakes, Jonathan, that both consumers and or investors face, whether they know it or don't know it, but you try to coach them, you try to make sure that you get them back on the right track within guardrails?
Yeah, I think the easiest one to point out is kind of what we touched on earlier is not getting the right people on your team. I know myself, I've personally struggled with that type of scarcity mindset, thinking, oh, I've got to fit in within this budget and whatnot. But, when you end up using the wrong people, you end up paying more in the long run. I like the expression that being cheap is expensive. And so
Yes.
I just always kind of look to make sure that we're in alignment with our clients, because the second, we feel that kind of misalignment where, there's always going to be changes that come up. And we want to work together to be solving the problems, not pointing fingers at whose fault it was, because one of the biggest assets we have is our time. And
Yeah.
especially as an investor, time usually ends up costing us more money
Yeah.
than actual changes that end up coming up. And then the other thing I'll touch on is just materials. Typically, I think we provide a material allowance for either our homeowner clients or our investor clients. And oftentimes it's just easy to start picking out things that may not be within that budget. So that's always a way that we can either kind of trim down the fat to get to a lower cost, or sometimes it's going the opposite way. And it's really kind of hard to figure out what that material cost is going to be until that client's taking the time to kind of get a really good understanding of what they're looking for.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And time is depending on how you look at it, right? For your client and my client, time can be the friend or the enemy. If you're fixing and flipping, yes, you got to keep your eye on the time, because if you let that drag out too much, you're paying too much juice on the short-term financing that you have to carry. And if you're doing a fix and hold, same thing. I mean, the longer you drag it out, the later that you can rent out the subject property or the subject property with multiple units to tenants, so that you can cash flow on that property. Having said that, the one thing that really intrigued me, and let me bring it up from your website, Jonathan, is you share this And I thought, after meeting you, and of course being prepared to have this live stream conversation with you today, I came upon this on your website, and I thought, wow, Jonathan, how bold, how confident, but I love it. Basically, your message is start renovating with 100% refundable deposit. And my perception is you've made it so transparent and easy for your clients, right?
Yeah, I think we've definitely taken a little bit different approach than your typical general contractor. Obviously, we have a little bit of a technology background as well.
Yeah,
And, all of our estimates and proposals are built specifically off of data from past projects. And
nice.
we're just very confident in our numbers that if you want to go with someone else because they're less expensive, we're totally okay with that. That's one of the caveats at the bottom is just like, hey, we want to see what other numbers you're working with because
Yeah,
we're very confident in the numbers that we have, and we can explain line by line how we got to them because it's not kind of the magic wand, so to speak, of figuring out how they got there. Everything is measured exactly on every job site of how many square feet of flooring, how many linear feet of pipe, how many faucets, how many toilets, and all of that, is calculated in our back end to provide a very clear picture of the exact cost of each project.
wonderful. So are there some instances with some of your projects where maybe you are engaged in the project as the general contractor, and the client, whether it be investor or consumer, new first-time home buyer or repeat home buyer, maybe they say to you, Jonathan, love your vibe, love the fact that I can lean on you to be my quarterback of the real estate team. However, there's certain things that I've already got some specialty subcontractors to do that kind of stuff. So do you work with the client depending on what their needs are?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I always try to pride myself on is being open-minded, and we're constantly looking for quality subs, and I think we kind of still would want to go through our vetting process because that's important for us if we're
Sure,
bringing someone else on our team, so to speak, that
sure.
we've at least kind of done our own due diligence. But we're always looking for quality subs, quality people, and if clients have different ideas and ways to work together, we're always open to that.
Yeah, I love that attitude. Back to the cliche, real estate is a team sport. You got to make sure you have the right team members on the field for each play, right? Sometimes if the subs are coming upon a life event where they cannot hit the field, you got to have your bench of second tier, third tier, or pull them from the farm league to help out, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's such a good point. It is, I've personally got burned by general contractors. I've personally got burned by subcontractors, and it doesn't happen often anymore. But there's times people don't show up. Like
Yes.
we're relying on someone else at the end of the day, and we do our best to make sure we have the best people on our team. But people get hurt, people get sick, people have lives going on that we have to be ready to pivot and make sure we have someone else that can substitute in. And so that's another part of our sales process, Bill, is making sure that we have a large database of other subcontractors that we can lean on if we need to, sub someone out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, audience members, you heard it from Jonathan. Um, he can help you in multiple ways. He can help you from a high level. He can help you soup to nuts, start to finish, literally, wash your hands off of doing anything. He'll get you to the outcome that you need. And along the way, as you've heard from Jonathan, he's open-minded enough to where, sure, if you've got, let's drop this tease into the conversation. If you happen to have a nephew who is a great drywaller and you feel obligated to send business to your nephew, what I think I heard from Jonathan is he's open-minded enough to say, hey, we'll consider having him as part of the project team, but you still will need to vet the nephew to make sure that the time goal, the budget goals are being met. So I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up today's episode of Selling That House, for those of you who may be in the next 2 weeks about to commit to your renovation project, or maybe you're going to build a brand new home, right? That's the other end of what Jonathan can help you do. Simply Google search him. He's easy to find. I found him quite easy. And as you can tell, he is certainly a skilled general contractor, armed with enough technology skills, people skills, as I like to tease some of my guests, Jonathan. You can walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And for those of you who may be planning a project that requires Jonathan's help, and along the way, you might need to consider how to finance that project, unless you're using your own cold hard cash. Feel free to engage me in a conversation as well, because Jonathan and I believe in working as a team, delivering for you the outcome that you want. We both are ready, willing, and able to engage you in a conversation. For those of you who may be real estate brokers, right? You have clients that cannot find their perfect home at the price point they believe is their perfect home. And they are now open to the idea of, you know what? Location is much more important. Help me find that ugly duckling. If, again, you need to engage us in a conversation, both Jonathan and myself, I've made it so easy for you today. All you need to do is simply scan this QR code, and we will be in touch with you to start a conversation, to scope out what needs to be done for you, real estate broker, and or your end client. As we wrap up today's episode of Selling the House, Jonathan, thank you for sharing your time with me. I hope I didn't rush you from going up and down a lot of ladders at some job site this morning.
No, yeah, I do try to avoid staying off the ladders. I tried being a carpenter for a while when I was in my high school and college years, and I wasn't horrible, but I was by no means above average. So yeah, I try to let people do what they're really good at, and a lot of our team is good at swinging hammers and climbing ladders, and I try to just organize everything around them.
Yep. Just like you heard me say, because real estate is a team sport. Someone like you, it sounds like to me, you're a great quarterback. You just need the wide receivers and the other people to do their part while you're running the play. Love it.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, Bill. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right. Until we see each other, everyone, in the next episode of Selling That House. Have a good day.